Hello, I am Joanne Weber, and I am a researcher at the University of Alberta in deaf education and arts-based research. Today I want to look at newer theories relating to intersectionality and posthumanism, and this is the sign I'll use for posthumanism. But as they relate to arts-based research. Considering intersectionalities can be problematic. Can we consider First Nations people to have intersectionalities given their connection to and identification with the land? They were here on this land long before the white colonizers arrived, long before other immigrant populations arrived. So the modern working theory of intersectionality may not apply. So what do we do? We can define intersectionality as multiple means of suppressing people's identities, languages, and cultures. Intersectionality theory tends to look at identities as static, that people don't move, or that our bodies don't change. These are some of the features of intersectionality. Now I want to touch on posthuman performativity, which I will sign like this. Posthuman performativity acknowledges that body, place, language, culture, space are all dynamically interfacing with each other, exerting power. And in these contexts, power can be taken, power can be given, power can be used, and power can be lost. Before moving on, let's define intersectionality. Intersectionality occurs when a person experiences oppression because of two or more of their identities. Take me, for example. I am white. As a white person, I do not experience oppression, but as a deaf person, I do. So I personally only have one identity type toward which others may and do discriminate against me. I can easily imagine a white deaf person oppressing other deaf people with intersecting identities, such as being Black, Indigenous, having a disability. In posthuman performativity, who are the players? Humans, animals, earth, machine, the unconscious, all interact and influence each other. Posthuman performativity can be place-based. So in this assemblage, what is the underlying goal? What does it want? In this animation, I attempt to demonstrate the performativity of animal, human, earth, machine, and unconscious in the assemblage. At this point, I want to add another layer. The body of organs. The body of organs, too, interacts with the performativity of the other elements. But it represents the environment with its natural lack of organization, lack of structure, no categorizations exist. It's not managed, it's just there. Now the animation continues to show the dynamic performative interactions, while at the same time the plane upon which they move is also shifting. I tend to think of intersectionality as not focused on the body of organs, I think of it as linked to a place only and not to the body of organs. In this presentation, I wish to share passages of a script I have written. It's situated in the times when the West saw settlers coming to establish farms and take the land. Specifically, the dynamic of deaf settlers moving west and their interactions with the indigenous peoples of the land, now identified as Treaty 4. Deaf settlers of the time would have experienced discrimination on one dimension only, because they were all white. The indigenous people would face discrimination because they are not white, but within their tribes and villages, they would have deaf members. So let's consider posthuman performativity, using the body of organs to create a new lens of intersectionality for this context. I'll start with some background. The deaf settlers were originally from London, England. Their prospects were dismal. They had no training, no skills, unable to find work. Their lives were a terrible struggle, on the brink of starvation. Many were living on the street with no way out of their deplorable circumstances. They decided to take advantage of the offer of land in Western Canada and to become farmers. Under the 1872 Homesteaders Act, they were able to acquire property on the Treaty 4 lands. It was not easy for the deaf immigrants. They had to fight the government of the day to be allowed in. The government did not want to permit persons with disabilities to come to Canada. Only able-bodied people were allowed to enter, and they were determined to turn away anyone with a disability. In the end, the deaf settlers prevailed and were granted land in the QU'APPELLE Valley. They were situated in 3 small towns near Regina: LIPTON, DYSART, and CUPAR. Their relocation to this area took place between 1903 and 1904. As we know, the indigenous people were on the land first and had been displaced to several reserves in the region. The deaf settlers had a great deal of support. Every fall, deaf people from Gallaudet College in Washington, D.C., from Toronto, and from other communities in Ontario would travel to help with the harvest and prepare the crops. Naturally, such an annual event would include social gatherings where news of the past year would be shared, stories and folklore passed on, and friendships rekindled. Of course, all of this would be taking place in sign language. My script features a scene featuring a harvest meal with everyone breaking bread and sharing news and gossip, again, all in sign language. In the backdrop, a group of hearing farmers were not pleased with what they were seeing happening on these deaf settlers' farms. In my scene, these farmers ride to the site of the harvest meal and don't like what they see. All these people talking with their hands. The hearing farmers were looking for one particular man at the meal, who was hearing, and his wife. They have a deaf son and were supportive of the deaf farmers. When they found the couple, they pulled them aside. The farmers wanted to know what the heck was going on with all these people being here and waving their hands around. The father of the deaf son said, "Look, it's complicated. I'll explain it later." The farmers were not happy about this response, but they did join the others for some food. While the farmers accepted the invitation, they were bewildered by what they saw. The deaf people would break out in laughter or shout, and the two hearing farmers didn't know why. Soon after, more visitors arrived. Local indigenous people, led by their chief and his daughter, who is deaf. They stood back from the dozens of deaf settlers, watching them eat and communicate with their signs. The hearing couple with the deaf son looked over and saw the indigenous people on the edge of the field, surprised to see them talking with the deaf daughter using their hands. The deaf daughter approached the couple and was able to explain that they had no food and were hungry. The wife hurriedly pulled together a sackful of food and gave it to the daughter to bring to her people. At this point, the deaf settlers saw what was going on, and there became a standoff. The atmosphere was very tense. The father comes forward and approaches the chief. He asks the chief, "Have you met with the commissioner, Commissioner Dewdney?" Let me take a step back here. Dewdney was the official representative responsible to uphold the agreements of Treaty 4 for all the reservations in the area. Dewdney refused to provide adequate food for the indigenous people in an effort to force them to take up farming. His perception was that they were lazy. So back to the script. The father asks the chief if he has met with Dewdney, and the chief replies, "Dewdney refuses to provide food and wants us to farm, but does not want to give us equipment to farm. And with the buffalo herds gone, we have nothing." So let's explore. Argument 1. The white hearing farmers say, "We work hard for our living. We work the land to grow our food. You should do the same thing." The deaf daughter responds, "We don't grow our food. We hunt and harvest from the land. We follow the buffalo and find plants and mushrooms along the way." A deaf farmer steps forward and says to the indigenous people, "You have to change your ways. We had to make those changes too. No one wants us here, so we have to roll up our sleeves and do it ourselves." Now the second argument. Keep in mind that everyone is now standing on the field and the situation is quite tense. The deaf indigenous daughter says, "You are deaf, but you come here and take land. You are white. You have white friends. You understand how to farm. The deaf settler responds, when we got here, we did not know how to farm. We learned what to do, and we work hard on our farms. The deaf Indigenous daughter says, you came here from far away, from England. You take the land from here. The deaf farmer answers, in England, no one cared about us deaf. England doesn't want us because we're deaf. They feel sorry for us. We want to have our own place, to live the way we want. A place we can use sign language, where we can learn things our way. We need to own the land because the hearing people took away our jobs. We have land now, so we feel safe. The deaf daughter replies, you used to be hungry. You had no home. So you come here and take the land? You have power now because you take the land. Now we are hungry. How can we solve our problems? How do we make our home? How do we get food? We cannot move to another country. We belong here, and we can share the land. The traditions of the people are disregarded. A class of less than human others has been created. For example, women, LGBTQ, BIPOC, immigrants, indigenous, animals, plants, earth. The needs of others are disregarded in the pursuit of capitalism. Resources are for exploiting. We must come together to reject this. So intersectionality really refers to nomadic activity. This performativity is what intersectionality really means. Intersectionality is dynamic, interaction, and mutual support among humans, animals, earth, machine, and unconscious, our goals, our desires. We need to learn from Indigenous people, their beliefs, their worldview, from a post-colonial, decolonized African theoretical perspective. We need to think about this from a multinatural continuum across all spaces, a body of organs where the performativity is three-dimensional and constantly in motion. This allows for a deeper understanding of intersectionality. The message I want to leave with you is the importance of understanding we all belong to one another. I conclude with this picture of a rabbit. In my script, the rabbit is a symbol for belonging. In the play, all the different groups try to catch rabbits. But in the play, in the end, the rabbit is never caught and is free to live its life. Thank you for listening to my presentation.